Well, hello. So this week's been a very fun week. I've got a really interesting topic, which is essentially a continuation from a topic I recorded earlier last week, which was the how much does it cost to actually produce a book? So after you've produced the book, so you put in the 400 hours and the maybe $3,000 for the total production costs. If you skipped a whole bunch of editing, or you kind of elbow greased your way into that one, then what's next? Well, the next thing you want to do is distribute your book, because you need your book to be sold, and you need to get profit back from that, right? So let's talk about that particular chain. In the current time, you format the book, you can upload it to Amazon, to Barnes & Noble. There's some distribution outlets like Smashwords or Drafted Digital, which will take your electronic manuscript and then convert it for use on more than one of the distribution sales points for electronic books. And at that point, the book sells. They download the book. You get the money. You get a percentage of the money back, which is somewhere between 40 and 70% of the sales price. That's for electronic books, and many independent authors today think that that's awesome, because when you have a book and you're selling it and you're getting 40 to 70%, that's way better than what they've heard about the traditional deals. Well, on the traditional publishing deals with the big publishing houses, everyone always hears, oh, well, they're really bad contracts. You only get 5% royalties, or maybe 20% royalties if you're lucky. And so they're thinking, well, shoot, I'm getting 70% royalties from Amazon for my electronic books. I'm better than everybody else. And the answer is not exactly. So when you're doing this, you're actually ignoring a majority of the readers of the world, because even today, which is May or June of 2017, people who read electronic books only account for about 30% of the total reading population of the entire world. So that means that by distributing the books in only electronic format, you are ignoring, let's just be conservative, you're ignoring 50% of the reading market. So that means that you could double your sales if you distributed them in physical form. That means a printed book. So what's involved with that? What does it take? It just so happens that I spent some time today, and I've come up with more sophisticated diagrams. So for this one, let's just walk through what this actually means, and I actually have figured out the numbers to go along with this. So the author starts off with, I have a book, hooray, and it's been formatted, hooray. Now, what am I going to do with it? And the author then goes and hands it off to a publisher. Now, the publisher, even for an independent author who's not going through a traditional publisher, the publisher could be one of the many small presses. It could be what's known as a vanity press. And these companies, what they'll do is they generally charge the author, and they take the manuscript, and then they produce physical books, which they then sell back to the author. So the author pays for the setup, the author pays for the production, the author pays for everything, and then the author ends up with boxes and boxes of their own books. That's the old traditional vanity press model. And so basically the author would spend, quite literally, $2,000 in a good case, and maybe $10,000, $15,000 in a predatory case, to get a couple hundred copies of their book sitting in their basement that they can then drive around to bookstores and try and sell themselves. That basically turns the author from an author into a door-to-door salesperson trying to sell books. Not exactly an appealing job shift. And it's also something that many authors are afraid of, which is one of the reasons why a lot of independent authors don't try to do anything with printed books. Amazon provides a very simple means, which is CreateSpace, which some people may be familiar with. It handles the process very similarly. So again, the author creates the book, has a manuscript. They talk to CreateSpace. CreateSpace sets everything up, does all the appropriate pieces for them. CreateSpace doesn't charge. It's actually free to the author, but only free in a very funny sense, and I'll explain what that means. Then CreateSpace will then be, everything will get set up so that it can sell and ship the book. And what CreateSpace will do is, CreateSpace is what's known as a pod printer, which is a print on demand, and a print on demand service is actually very, very expensive. Typically to produce a single book is about $7 or $8 in actual work right then and there. It's almost like standing in front of a photocopier, manually photocopying the entire book, then cutting it, and then gluing it together, and then sending it out. The print-on-demand printers have managed to automate this and streamline the process so that it's pretty cost-effective. I won't call it cost-effective because there's still a significant reduction in price if you can bulk print. So the print-on-demand publishers, CreateSpace is one of them. Ingress, Spark, or Lightning Source is another one. These are the places where, as an independent author, you can get your book in. It puts your book up for sale on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and a couple other places, where the book isn't actually made or printed. Someone buys it, and then as soon as they buy it, it's then produced and shipped. This is extremely cost prohibitive, and so the author ends up making maybe $1 or $2 on an $18 book, which is down around 5 to 10% royalty rate. That should sound familiar. Now, let's talk about a traditional publisher. A traditional publisher takes a huge risk, and that risk is that when the author gives the publisher the manuscript, they set the whole thing all up, they put it into their system, and then they do a print run, and the print run will be of a certain number, which is usually in the thousands, which dramatically brings the cost of the individual book down. They then ship those books to their bookstores. The bookstores then try and sell those books out to the consumers. Now, the electronic books, straight to consumers. So if they sell their books to the consumers, outstanding. But there's an extra path to the trash that many authors don't understand. And that's what I want to talk about. So the books that go to the trash, what happens is when the bookstore orders the books from the publisher, the bookstore is not at risk because the publisher is guaranteeing to the bookstore that the books will sell or they're going to get their money back. So when they get their money back, what that means the bookstore puts the book up for sale, tries to sell it, and then in about 4 months, 3 months, whatever the bookstore wants to do, there is a time limit. It's about 6 months. The bookstore then pulls what's left of the books and then calls up the publisher and goes, of the 100 books you sent us, I still got 20 copies. And the publisher goes, okay. And the bookstore goes, now, do you want me to ship those back to you? And the publisher goes, oh, heck no, I don't want those books here. So the bookstore then rips the copyright page and the title page out of the book, literally, and throws the book in the trash. And the publisher sends a check to the bookstore for the refund of those 20 books. So the bookstore didn't lose any of the money for those 20 books, including the shipping costs. Those were all refunded. Now, in a traditional publisher sense, the publisher is the one who takes the risk. In a pod or a specialized setup with small press printings and such like this, vanity press, it's the author who takes this risk. So the author produces the books, they get printed, they get shipped to the bookstores. The bookstore then throws away a certain percentage of those books. The publisher refunds the money to the bookstore and then pulls the money from the author. So if you look at this, generally speaking, there's roughly on a really top selling book, there's about a 15% return rate. On a poorly selling book, there's a 50% return rate. Somewhere in other books fall somewhere in between. So if it costs $8 to print and ship a single copy of the book, and the author got, say, $2 a book, then on that print run, the author will have lost money because let's just run the numbers. So for a hardcover, it costs $15. For a traditional, which is a 6x9, it costs $11. For a small pocket paperback, which is called a mass market, it's $9 cost of printing. So if the author sold 20 books shipped, so that's $264. The publisher pays the author $20, and if 30% don't sell, the store returns $6. So we're just talking 20 books, right? So the author made $1 a book on 20 books, $20. So 20 books were ordered by the store. This is just a single store order. 20 books were ordered by the store. The author got $6. The publisher got the rest, which pays for the printing and shipping. Then 30% don't sell. That's 6 books. So the store calls up and says, "Hello, I got 6 books." The publisher goes, "Nope, throw those away." And then what happens is the publisher refunds $15 per copy to the bookstore, because that covers the cost of the book plus the cost of the shipping. Then the publisher reaches back at the author and then pulls $90 out of the author's bank account to cover the return. So where the author earned $20 cash at the beginning, now the author ends up paying $90 cash back, and I'm sure you can do the math. That's a $70 loss. This is why pod printing and supporting the normal distribution model doesn't work, because the publisher's never at risk and the bookstore's never at risk. It's always the author who's at risk, and you can't get the individual price for the per copy printing is too heavy. It's way too loaded down with the print on demand or the small volume pricing structure. So that's what kills a lot of authors, and that's why getting into the bookstores is really hard. But on a traditional publishing contract, so let's just really quickly run through the numbers on that one. So on a traditional publishing deal, the author gets the 15% royalty. So the publisher then does a print run of, say, 6,000 copies. Well, when they're doing at that levels, the hardcover, which previously on the small press cost $15, when they print it at that volume, they can get it down to $5. And they can do the mass market ones, the MMs, for $1.50. That's how come they can get those pocket paperbacks for sale for $8 or $9 in the store, because at the price level of $1.50 each, printed and shipped, it's easy to give a discount to the store and also still make a profit. So the author gets 7 to 15% royalties back. And with the sales return of 30%, so this is on a print run of 6,000 books, 2,000 hard copies, 4,000 mass market. So with printing and shipping, the total costs are $30,800, okay? And because of the discounts and the wholesale discounts and what the way the market works, the publisher actually gets $46,800. So that means that they've made right there $16,000 cash from that print run. But it's not over yet because it still returns, right? So let's say this is a good seller, so there's only a 30% return rate. So that means there's 600 hard copies come back and 1,200 mass markets come back. Now again, they're refunding what they charge the stores. So the printer has to give $8,100 in refunds for hardcovers and $5,940 in refunds for the pocket paperbacks. So in addition, they've already paid the author $2,900 for royalties and $1,700 for the pocket paperback and royalties. So that means that in the end, even with the refunds, that they have about a $1,200 profit on that run. And the reason for that profit is simply because of the volume. And the volume is what is the killer for the pod printers. Now their margin for return is very narrow. So if the return rate goes up to even to 33%, so if a book is being published and sold, if its return rate is below 30%, it's a huge seller and they make a lot of extra money, because really the amount of money made is truly in how much they have to refund for the returns. So if the book is a really good seller, they'll have less returns, which means that they will make their profit can go up really fast. If the percentages drop down to say a 25% return rate, they can make $30,000-$40,000 net profit after everything's said and done. But if the return rate goes up to 33%, they start losing money, which means they're in the same negative loop that the author is. Traditional publishers are taking that risk, which is also the reason that traditional publishers reject so many books, and they're not willing to take a lot of risks. They know what books will sell, and they know what people will buy. So they're only interested in producing books that they're positive will get at least a 30% return rate or better, which is to say a smaller percentage return rate, so that they can make their profit. And that's really the inside of that game. So if you want to have any questions about this, or if something didn't come through clearly, definitely ask me in the comments. And also, if you want, you can subscribe. There should be a subscribe button someplace. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to be here or there, but I'll just subscribe to my channel. Bum bum bum. Yeah, that'd be fun. And I hope to talk to you more about this. If any follow-up questions, I will do another video on them, and especially ones that I get more than, if everyone's like, tell me about this. This is a really complex subject. It's got a lot of moving parts, and so that's why this one went long too. So yeah, well, it's okay. It was interesting. So talk to you all later, and thank you very much for watching.